I still can't believe it happened. My own father, at his retirement dinner, in front of all his colleagues, friends, and family, called me a failure. He stood up there, glass in hand, the spotlight on him, and used his supposed moment of triumph to tear me down. But what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that my incredible wife was about to reveal a truth so damning, so utterly devastating, that it would expose him for the monster he truly was and change our lives forever. Was I wrong for letting her do it? Tell me if you would have done the same thing. It all started so innocently, or so I thought. My dad, Arthur, had been a prominent figure in the architectural world for over 40 years. He built a reputation, a successful firm, and what many perceived as a perfect life. From the outside, we were the ideal family, the accomplished father, the elegant mother, and me, their only son, poised to follow in his footsteps. That was the narrative he'd meticulously crafted, and for a long time I bought into it. My earliest memories are of him at his drafting table, intricate blueprints spread out, the scent of fresh paper and coffee filling his home office. He'd tell me stories of grand buildings, of shaping skylines, and I'd sit there, captivated, dreaming of the day I'd design something equally magnificent. He always pushed me towards architecture, from gifting me elaborate Lego sets as a child to encouraging my choice of university major. It was less encouragement and more an unwavering expectation, a predetermined path I was to walk. I met Sarah in my final year of university. She was studying interior design, a free spirit with a vibrant laugh and an artistic soul that resonated with mine in a way nothing else ever had. She saw beyond the ambition my father had instilled in me. She saw me, the person beneath the layers of expectation. We fell deeply in love, a love that felt both exhilarating and terrifying, mostly because I knew my father wouldn't approve. He had a very specific vision for my future wife, someone from a good family, someone who understood the social graces of our world, someone who would complement his son's rising career in his firm. Sarah, with her unconventional style and her dreams of opening her own sustainable design studio, didn't fit that mold. The first time I introduced her to my parents, it was a disaster. Dad barely acknowledged her, his eyes constantly scanning the room as if searching for someone more suitable. Mom, ever the diplomat, made polite conversation, but even her forced smile couldn't hide the disapproval. After Sarah left, Dad launched into a tirade. "She's not what we envisioned for you, son. She's bohemian, not the kind of woman who will help you climb the ladder." I argued with him, for the first time truly standing my ground. I told him I loved her, that she made me happy, and that her background or career choice had no bearing on her worth. He dismissed my feelings, telling me I was being naive and that I'd regret it. That argument marked a turning point in our relationship. A subtle, yet undeniable, fissure appeared. Despite his disapproval, Sarah and I continued our relationship. We got engaged, then married, in a small, intimate ceremony that my parents reluctantly attended. Their gifts were extravagant, almost performative, but their presence felt cold, distant. My career, meanwhile, was slowly diverging from the path my father had laid out. I worked for his firm for a few years after graduation, initially hoping to prove myself, to earn his respect. But the constant micromanagement, the endless comparisons to his own early career, and the stifling lack of creative freedom suffocated me. He wanted me to be a replica of him, not my own person. I started taking on small, independent projects on the side, designing sustainable, community-focused buildings, a stark contrast to the towering, corporate structures my father specialized in. Sarah, by then, had successfully launched her own studio, thriving with her unique vision. Her success, ironically, felt like a personal affront to my father. He'd make snide remarks about hobby businesses and chasing impractical dreams. The truth was, my small projects, while not bringing in his kind of money, brought me immense satisfaction. I was building things that mattered, things that served a purpose beyond pure profit or ego. Eventually, I made the incredibly difficult decision to leave his firm. It wasn't easy. The fear of disappointing him, of severing that last professional tie, was immense. But the mental toll of staying was far greater. I sat him down, carefully explaining my aspirations, my desire to forge my own path. He listened, his face a mask of disappointment. When I finished, he simply said, "You're making a mistake, son. You'll regret walking away from what I built for you. You'll fail." Those words, delivered with such cold certainty, stung more than any argument. He believed I was destined for failure without his guidance, his name, his infrastructure. For years after that, our interactions were strained. Holidays were awkward, filled with forced smiles and superficial conversations. He'd occasionally ask about my work, but it was always with a condescending tone, followed by a thinly veiled jab about my struggling, business, or how I was wasting my potential. He never once acknowledged any of my successes, no matter how small. Sarah, bless her heart, was my rock through all of it. She saw the pain his words inflicted, the constant struggle I had to overcome his negativity. She'd remind me of my worth, of the incredible impact my work had, and of the unique vision I brought to the world. She celebrated every milestone, every small victory, filling the void left by my father's indifference. Then came the announcement of his retirement dinner. My mother, perhaps sensing the growing chasm between us, insisted I attend. "It's a big moment for your father, darling. Please, for my sake." I reluctantly agreed. Sarah, ever supportive, said she'd be there for me, a silent anchor in what I knew would be a difficult evening. The venue was grand, a testament to his successful career. Architects, developers, influential clients, everyone who was anyone in the local industry was there. My parents greeted guests with the practiced ease of socialites. I felt like an impostor, a shadow in his grand narrative. Dinner proceeded with the usual formalities, speeches by long-time colleagues praising his vision, his dedication, his unwavering commitment to excellence. My stomach churned with a mixture of pride for his achievements and resentment for the way he'd always treated me. Finally, it was Dad's turn to speak. He stood at the podium, a charismatic smile on his face, a glass of champagne in his hand. He thanked everyone, reminisced about his early days, and spoke of the legacy he was leaving behind. I braced myself, hoping for a flicker of warmth, a nod, anything that acknowledged my presence positively. But it never came. Instead, his gaze swept over the room, pausing briefly on me before he delivered the blow. "And, of course," he began, his voice dripping with false sentimentality, "I've always hoped my son would follow in my footsteps. I tried to guide him, to give him the best foundation, but alas, some choose a different path, a less successful path, shall we say. It's a shame, really, all that talent wasted on small, insignificant projects. But I suppose not everyone is cut out for the big leagues. He finished with a theatrical sigh, as if truly pained by my supposed shortcomings, while the rest of the room shifted uncomfortably, some casting sympathetic glances my way, others looking away entirely. My face burned, the humiliation was palpable, a physical weight pressing down on me. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to scream. I wanted to walk out and never look back. My father, in his moment of glory, had chosen to publicly brand me a failure. I felt Sarah's hand squeeze mine under the table, a silent reassurance. I looked at her, my eyes pleading, mortified. She simply gave me a small, knowing smile, a glint in her eyes I couldn't quite decipher. My mind was racing, a whirlwind of anger and hurt. How could he do this? How could he humiliate me like this? All those years of trying to prove myself, of building something of my own, reduced to insignificant projects, and wasted talent. It felt like a lifetime of quiet condescension had finally exploded in a public spectacle. I could hear whispers around us, muffled commiserations. It was everything I had feared, everything I had tried to avoid. The shame was suffocating. I felt utterly defeated. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let it slide? Would you have confronted him there and then? Or would you have waited for a different kind of moment? As my father basked in the awkward silence he had created, still smiling, oblivious to the true damage he'd inflicted, Sarah slowly stood up. My heart pounded. Sarah, no. I whispered, pulling on her hand. She ignored me, her gaze fixed on my father. She wasn't angry. She was calm, almost serene, which was far more terrifying. She walked deliberately towards the podium, her heels clicking softly on the marble floor, drawing every eye in the room. My mother looked horrified. My father's smile faltered, replaced by a look of confused irritation. Sarah reached the microphone, adjusted it slightly, and took a deep breath. "Arthur," she began, her voice clear and resonant, cutting through the stunned silence. That was quite a speech, very touching, especially your lament about your son's supposed failures. Her voice was devoid of emotion, a dangerous calm before a storm. But perhaps, before we all toast to your illustrious career, there's a small detail you might have forgotten to mention. A detail that explains why your son chose a different path. My father's face tightened. Sarah, this is neither the time nor the place for family grievances. He snapped, trying to regain control. Oh, I think it's precisely the time and place. She countered, her eyes sparkling with defiance. You see, everyone here knows Arthur as a brilliant architect, a pillar of the community, a self-made man. What many don't know, however, is that Arthur's self-made success wasn't entirely his own, and his son's insignificant projects are actually building a far more meaningful legacy. She paused, letting her words hang in the air, the tension in the room almost unbearable. My mother looked like she was about to faint. My father was rigid, his complexion paling. "Allow me to illuminate," Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength. "My husband, your son, has dedicated his career to sustainable architecture, building affordable housing and community centers in underserved areas. He doesn't chase corporate towers. He builds homes for families. He doesn't seek fame. He seeks impact. He's currently working on a groundbreaking project to retrofit an entire neighborhood with self-sustaining energy systems, a project that was just awarded a prestigious national grant." A ripple went through the crowd. This was news to everyone. My father had actively suppressed any mention of my achievements, but more importantly, Sarah pressed on, her voice hardening, "My husband is doing this without the benefit of a trust fund, without the lavish startup capital, and without the network of influential contacts that Arthur inherited." She paused dramatically, her eyes piercing into my father's. You see, Arthur's father, a relatively unknown but brilliant structural engineer, left him a substantial inheritance, not just money, but also a fully established, albeit small, architectural practice with several loyal clients and a strong portfolio. He didn't start from scratch, as he so often claims. He started several rungs up the ladder, thanks to the quiet, diligent work of his own father. Gasps filled the room. This was a bombshell. Everyone had always believed Arthur's riches story, his narrative of pulling himself up by his bootstraps. The carefully constructed facade began to crumble, and here's where it gets truly interesting. Sarah said, her voice dropping to a low, chilling tone. Arthur's father's final wish was that his son would continue his legacy, specifically focusing on innovative public sector projects. He even stipulated in his will that a significant portion of his estate was to be channeled into such ventures, managed by Arthur, as long as he stayed true to that vision. However, Arthur chose a different path, didn't he? He pivoted to commercial architecture, chasing profits and prestige, and the money intended for public sector projects. It quietly disappeared into his private investments and personal ventures, rather than fulfilling his father's dying wish. The silence that followed was deafening. My father stood there, utterly exposed, his jaw hanging open. His carefully cultivated image, meticulously built over decades, was shattered in a matter of minutes. The whispers turned into a low hum of disbelief, then outright murmurs of anger from some of his long-time colleagues who remembered his father and had admired his principles. My mother was weeping silently, her face buried in her hands. So, when Arthur calls his son a failure for choosing a path of purpose over profit, Sarah concluded, her voice ringing with righteous indignation, perhaps he should look in the mirror. Because while my husband is building a genuine legacy of impact and integrity, Arthur built his on a foundation of deception and betrayed trust. Good night, everyone, and congratulations on your retirement, Arthur. She placed the microphone back on the stand, her gaze unflinching as she met my father's stunned, furious eyes. Then she walked back to me, took my hand and squeezed it tightly. The room erupted into a cacophony of whispers, a mixture of shock, anger, and dawning realization. People started gathering their things, their celebratory mood utterly evaporated. Some came over to me, offering genuine apologies for my father's behavior, their eyes now seeing me with newfound respect. My father, meanwhile, stood rooted to the spot, his face a mask of utter devastation, his grand retirement dinner irrevocably ruined. His colleagues, the ones who had just toasted him, now looked at him with disdain. The aftermath was chaotic. My mother called us the next day, distraught. She confirmed everything Sarah had said, adding details about how my father had always been haunted by his own father's disapproval of his commercial ambitions, and how he had compensated by constantly putting me down, projecting his own perceived failures onto me. The legal ramifications for my father were swift and severe. Several of his father's former associates, now knowing the truth, launched an investigation into the mishandling of the trust fund. His reputation, once pristine, was in tatters. His retirement, instead of being a celebratory send-off, became a bitter, isolating end to his career. He lost many clients, friends, and ultimately, a significant portion of his wealth as he faced legal battles and public scrutiny. He tried to deny it, to spin it, but Sarah had come prepared with documents, with undeniable proof she had spent months meticulously gathering, just in case he ever pushed me too far. She had consulted lawyers, researched public records, and pieced together the financial discrepancies, all in secret. She had been waiting for the right moment, and his retirement dinner, his chosen stage for my humiliation, had provided it. Our relationship with my parents is irrevocably broken, particularly with my father. He blames Sarah entirely, and by extension, me. But honestly, for the first time in my life, I feel free. Free from his judgment, free from his expectations, free from the constant shadow of his disapproval. My business has flourished since then, attracting new investors and clients who are inspired by my vision and integrity. The national grant Sarah mentioned was a turning point, and the exposure from the dinner, though scandalous, brought unexpected attention to my work. People were curious about the son who built a genuine legacy. Sarah, my incredible wife, is my hero. She didn't just stand up for me. She unearthed a truth that had poisoned our family for decades, a truth that set me free. It was a brutal, public reckoning, and it tore our family apart, but it also paved the way for a more honest, authentic future for me. Sometimes the truth hurts, but it's the only path to real liberation. So, that's my story. I'm still processing it all, but one thing is clear. I have my wife, my integrity, and a future I'm building on my own terms. Like this video if you were on my side, subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.